Welcome to the Astral Tourist Podcast. During an astral projection this morning, I beheld thousands of UFOs flying in formation over my astral neighborhood. I am so excited to be sharing this episode with you. What I saw left me with more questions than answers. Make yourself comfortable and let's jump in, fly, or hit it. That's a little thing from Star Trek there. An astral projection I had earlier in this morning, in a future timeline, left me feeling restless. I decided I should explore my own neighborhood a bit more often. Inspired by the experience, I decided to use the wake back to bed method, hoping to gain more insights. After getting up for about 10 minutes, I snuggled back into bed, wrapping my blankets all around me because I notice I get very cold when I astral project. I don't know if everyone does, but I do. And I set my intention. If I managed to fall asleep again, I would return to my neighborhood, exploring any timeline, past, present, or future. As I was feeling pretty awake, I wasn't sure if it would work. So when I'm feeling super awake like that, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to sleep again, I keep the intention even more loose, which is why I did that with the timeline thing. I didn't want to be too specific because I knew whatever I was going to, possibly do or wherever be, it would probably be short here in the physical world. And I figured if it didn't work, which it sometimes doesn't when I'm that awake, that's okay. Astral projecting in my neighborhood was the primary goal, and I was going to keep that for the primary goal for like the next 3 days if I had to, because, wow, that last one was, you can go back in the videos and listen if you want. Anyway, this time I had the familiar blackout phase, but it was instantaneous, and I immediately phased out onto the small balcony that is attached to my bedroom. Normally, I need to make more distance from my physical body before I get pulled back. So sometimes I have to go way beyond my backyard even to not get pulled. So I was about to make that distance when I saw an entire fleet of UFOs flying overhead. I couldn't make it up if I tried. You can tell me I am if you want, but I'm not. This is what I saw in the astral. An entire fleet. I mean, I totally forgot about making any kind of distance at all. I've seen UFOs in the astral, so that doesn't necessarily surprise me that much, but the amount of them, the fleet, all these different ones, and they were flying over the lake in broad daylight. The sun was bright, and it was a particularly sunny day, probably mid-morning or early afternoon. They were coming from the direction of Mount Mansfield in Vermont. I say again, I've seen other UFOs coming from that direction before in the astral. So this is not the first time I've seen UFOs coming from that direction. Mostly, I was shocked and flabbergasted by the sheer number of crafts. There were thousands of them, at the very least, and my energy was getting bouncy, and it still is, and my voice is off. Everything is off today, but I guess in a good way. Usually when I go to the future, in the astral, I come back with more energy, but, certain things have to give, like you get a scratchy voice or something. It's weird that way, but, I'm happy to do that, scratchy voice in exchange for seeing UFOs of the future. Yeah, sign me up. There were 2 distinct types of UFOs. The ones to the left were large, deep, cobalt blue crafts in horizontal formations of 4 across. They resembled the boomerang-shaped UFOs I've seen in other reports. Also, I've seen boomerangs, by the way, in other astral projections, but they weren't like this. They were more basic shapes. But these were with softer, more curvy and sinuous lines, almost like squiggly shapes or tildes. Tildes are those little things right below your escape key that make the little wave. sign. So these were actually pretty nice looking. I also think there's something elegant about the sharper shaped boomerang ones. They're just right there in your face kind of. But these ones were more sophisticated. Maybe that's the word. The crafts to the right, in a whole different formation, were much smaller and reminiscent of the Tic Tac UFOs often described by others. They were capsule-shaped, silverish white, with smaller metallic ends and very short exhausts. So when I say smaller, I don't mean that much smaller. I mean, to the naked eye, it would look like it blended in with the capsule as more harmonious shape. I had previously noted the lack of exhausts on the boomerang-shaped crafts, and it could just have been their formation that I didn't see any, but I didn't see any on theirs. The Tic Tac style UFOs were grouped in formations of 5 or 6 across. I floated there in awe on my tiny little balcony here, watching the vast fleet move across the sky. The thought crossed my mind that perhaps this was a glimpse of the distant future, a time when large-scale colonization or scientific exploration was taking place. Maybe the ships were here to observe or perhaps even prepare for something monumental. I wanted to ask someone nearby and look around, see how many neighbors there were, to do a 360 like I do. But before I could find anyone or even begin to do any of that, I was pulled back into my physical body. And you know why, right? I did not make the distance. As I woke up with the experience of the UFOs still vivid in my mind, the whole fleet of UFOs, I lay there trying to make sense of what I had seen. But the mystery remained and still remains. Which future timeline had I glimpsed? Or was this happening in a closer dimension in the astral? It felt closer. It felt like a really parallel dimension, not that far away from us, is how it felt. Because I was right there on my balcony. The neighborhood was very similar. I had a lot of signs that it was very similar. But what was their purpose? They didn't seem ominous in any way. They also weren't putting out any, vibes of any kind I could perceive, like peace or love or anything. They were just there, flying. Recently, I've been discovering how Mount Mansfield in Vermont is more of a UFO hotspot than I ever knew. I mean, I thought Mount Shasta was amazing when I lived in that area. I've been in this area for a long time, and, I feel like just in the last couple of years, I'm observing more of what it really is. And it could be I've just been, so taken up with exploring far off dimensions and space and time that I never took the time to explore my neighborhood here that well. I mean, there was a period of time I was in grief about leaving Mount Shasta. So that could be a factor too. So thanks for tuning in. If you've had similar experiences or have your own theories about what these UFOs might be, I'd love to hear from you. Is it a glimpse of the future, a current astral event, or something else entirely? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, like, and subscribe for more adventures into the unknown. I do know advertising, so everything you do, I'm very grateful for. Thank you so much. Until next time, happy astral travels.